Hi, it's Paul Ryan. Last week I looked at some of the material that I'll cover in these broadcasts, but who am I? Who is a Paul Ryan, and why would you spend any time with me at all? That's the subject for today. The material that I have at my online stores and up at my ryantunes.com website, they represent my second foray or trip into the music world. The first was as a teenager in the 1960s, so I'll begin there first. I was born and raised in Toronto Downsview, and as a teen I was part of a musical, then folk country group, we called it. We called ourselves the Voyageurs, and we played at some of the usual venues you would expect from a high school band, smallish coffee houses, radio stations, schools, and dances. But the most prominent venue we played back in those days was the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee, right there on the Ryman stage. We played there 1964 through 1966. I didn't keep track of how many actual appearances or visits we made, but I do recall we made a number of trips to Nashville to play there during those years. One thing that I'll never forget, it was early in my very first trip to the Opry, Ryman. It had this huge backstage area where the performers mingled. Here we were, two teens from Canada, nervous as you can imagine. I can tell you that my main thought at that time was, what am I doing here? We were watching the stars talk to each other, names I'd only read about or heard on records, and so I went and sat in a corner trying not to be noticed. One lady broke away from the others and came over to introduce herself. And she said, "Hi, you must be the boys from Canada. My name's Loretta." Here was Loretta Lynn saying hello to two nobodies and making us feel right at home. The courtesies and person-next-door amiability of the Nashville stars of that era, Loretta Lynn and Earl Scruggs, has forever endeared me to them. And during recent years, whenever I've attended IBMA in Nashville, I think that still holds true today. There aren't any nicer, sweeter, more down-to-earth people I have ever met. As well as the Opry and the other Toronto venues, we also played at the Ernest Chubb Record Bar, plus some other noteworthy places. And after the Voyageurs, I was fortunate to cut my own record. I worked with a company back then called Action Records. They were on Music Row, and they released my very first and only single, a 45 for airplay. It was a song called Roseanne. As teenage bands do, we split up after high school. I wanted to attend university at that time, and that became my total focus. So I put the guitar away, only to be picked up again and played during the early 2000s. So it's like a 35-year gap. My academic life took me into advertising and marketing, and after working for ad agencies and media organizations and writing a book about advertising, by the late 1970s I decided to strike out on my own and build a market research and consulting business.
Thanks for listening today. Remember to come right back here next week for another edition of Sound Threads.
Okay.